Today I'll show you how to simplify hand anatomy and proportions so you can easily draw hands at any angle, even foreshortened ones. If we haven't met, I'm Fei from Wing Canvas and I've been teaching figure drawing for over 20 years. And hands are one of the trickiest things to draw because they're so familiar yet so complex. So grab a pencil or your favorite drawing tool and let's draw 8 poses together step by step, referencing our own hands. So if you look at the bone of a hand, or the skeletal structure, you can see that the bones continue all the way into the palm of the hand, right? So basically from the knuckle to the end of your hand, these are all bones and they all kind of continue. So you don't really see it on younger hands, but you will see it on hands that are older, right? And then the thumb, this one's not quite anatomically correct, but if you just look at the proportions and the way things align, if you drew a curve all the way across, you can see that your knuckles sort of align with the top of your thumb, more or less. So that's kind of a landmark that you want to sort of remember. These knuckles, again, they're all bones. And then your wrists have a lot of bones in here, which allows it to turn, 360 degrees. Usually speaking, when you have your hand out, you can see that there's an angle to the hand, right? It's really kind of awkward to put your hand straight like this. Usually speaking, your hand has a bit of an angle, so your wrist goes this way and then your hand goes that way. So this natural rhythm is really important for dynamic poses and dynamic gestures. So let's just draw our hand just straight on like this. So the first thing when we draw a hand that's straight on is I like to think of it as a piece of toast. So a piece of toast or a slightly elongated square. So it's more rectangular. And then relationship between the hand and the wrist. There's a bit of a space, right? So it adds to this kind of, there's more of a compression and there's more of an elongation on one side. And then from here, about halfway on this piece of toast, I draw in a triangle shape. So this is more of that muscle of the thumb. So it's kind of this muscle here. And then from there, I would draw in the shape of the fingers. So you can kind of see the length of the finger is slightly less than that piece of toast, right? My fingers are generally shorter than my palm. If you're drawing anime hands, right, the fingers can be longer. If you're drawing stylized hands, you can definitely exaggerate, but usually speaking, it's a bit shorter. So make sure that that line at the peak is shorter than the palm of your hand. Then you can kind of, divide out the fingers. So your index finger would be here, your middle finger would be here, ring finger, pinky. And then if you divide them into 3 sections, take the first section and then draw a curve, and that would be where your thumb goes. Your thumb is only 2 sections. I mean, the 3rd section is down here. Can't really see it. So you can see that the thumb is the only finger that faces a different direction. Your thumb is facing this way. All your other fingers are facing the other direction. So you can draw in your thumbnail if you want. Okay, and then you can start to make the hand a little rounder, and then you can draw in some of these lines if you want. Okay, and I say that the palm is like a piece of toast because it's round at the top. I drew it as a rectangular shape. It's in between a square and a rectangle. It's not quite rectangular enough. Like it's only just like a little bit. So it's squarish, but it's a long square and it is round at the top. Okay, so now that we have our hand like that, let's try and draw some different versions of the hand. So let's draw some different poses. You can do the poses yourself. So when you're drawing the hand, let's do the hand. Let's do a pose where you see the hand from more of the side. So let's do one that's like something like that. Using these forms, like let's say I'm going to be drawing the hand from the side, you can still see that piece of toast, right? That piece of toast would also have a thickness to it, like this. And then the thumb muscle comes out like this. And then sometimes, this is me thinking about the structure, but if I really want to sort of just pencil in the shape, I'll kind of sketch out the shapes first, and then draw out the fingers. So you can see I'm drawing angles for the fingers, and then for the thumb. Now when you're drawing fingers that are kind of stacked like this, where your fingers are sort of on top of each other, you really want to make sure that they are overlapping. Also, when you draw in the fingernails, right, you see the bottom of my nail here? See how the bottom of my nail is curving this way? It's because the cylinders are curving this way. So if you look at the lines of your knuckles, look at how they're curving into space. The fingernail would follow that curve. The worst thing you can do is kind of draw a fingernail that's like, I need a separate piece of paper. If you were drawing a fingernail, let's say you drew a finger and the finger's going this way. Say you drew a finger that's going this way and you draw the fingernail going like that. It doesn't follow the perspective. So you need to draw your fingernail following the perspective of the finger so it looks more convincing. So we're going to move on to another pose. Now let's draw a hand from the back. So I'm trying to find a pose that's like more natural, maybe like that. So again, every time you draw the hand, think about, okay, what is that piece of toast doing? Is it distorting a little bit? Here, my wrist is, my whole arm is going in perspective, right? So it's, that cylinder is pretty small at the bottom and large towards the top. I guess this is the bottom. So it's more, it's smaller at the top and larger at the bottom. Draw that kind of mountain shape. Find any alignments that will help you sort of describe the pose using just shapes. If you're unsure, you can kind of divide your piece of toast into 4 different sections. The pinky is obviously, like, this part is a little bit smaller, so I will just kind of make the space here a little bit bigger, like the space in between the fingers a little bit bigger, but generally I would divide it into 4. Hopefully with this method your hands will look a bit more dynamic and a bit more proportionate. So now let's do a hand that's kind of curved in this kind of weird weird curve. You can either go this way or you can go this way. But I kind of like this type of pose. Here I would draw in the gesture first. I mean, usually speaking, I think the gesture is a good important step, but sometimes the hand is just pretty stiff and it's hard to see the gesture, or it might be better to draw the shapes first. This one, the piece of toast is curving, right? So it's almost not very geometric. It's a lot more fluid. And then here I have to make sure that my fingers are not longer than my palm, even though my gesture extends out quite long. And then because my fingers are so straight and kind of curved, I'm just going to draw them as one cylindrical shape. Make sure that your thumb is overlapping. Like this thumb muscle kind of overlaps the palm of your hand. It overlaps all the other fingers. And then what you can do is you can make the bottom a little fleshier. You might look at this hand and say, whoa, it looks weird. But sometimes it does. As long as you get that fluidity of the hand, then that's fine.
You can help support our mission to make art education easily accessible for everyone. Become a Wing Canvas member on Patreon or YouTube and get special perks like classes and critiques.
Okay, so we have a pose from the palm open, one from the back, one from 3/4 view, one from the side. Let's do some fists. So fists are pretty easy to draw, right? They're just pretty much like shape-based. So when you're drawing in the fist, the same thing, you want to draw in, you know, where the fingers are, and then that thumb. I find drawing the thumb in early is really helpful. I mean, there are cases where you would draw the pinky first, but you know, because the thumb is the biggest finger, it makes sense to draw it in first. It's also quite independent, right? So typically speaking, drawing in the thumb first is better in most cases, but you know, whatever feels the most natural to you, just kind of follow your intuition. There's no right or wrong method. But generally speaking, you don't want to just start with outlines. If there had to be a wrong method, it would just be outlining, because
you don't really get the structure. So I would go a little bit darker where the fingers are digging into the palm of the hand. Getting these shadows will really make your hand feel like it's more realistic. All right. Now, let's see. Okay, let's do a foreshortened one. Let's do a foreshortened hand. What do you think? Like something like this? Well, we can do one going this way, and then we could do one going like this, like this way, something like that. So for foreshortening, let's do a hand kind of coming at you like this. For a foreshortened hand, you can see that piece of toast. It's a little bit bent. It's kind of going like this, right? You can draw that piece of toast in perspective, and then you can start to divide out the fingers like this, like that. If you really want to see sort of how the fingers connect to the palm, you can draw in those holes, and then you can sketch out your fingers, kind of where how the fingers are coming out of those holes. So say it's like this. Then you can draw in those fingers, assuming they're straight, like that. Okay, so structurally, I think that this is the easiest way to draw a foreshortened hand because you know exactly how the fingers fit into the palm, right? If you're just kind of drawing the outlines, usually it starts looking really weird and it's hard to get the finger alignment properly. And then after your shapes and your forms, if you are drawing cylinders as the fingers, then you can go in and add your line. Notice that my fingers are the cylinders are going this way, like the curve is curving down, right? Because the fingers are curving, the perspective of the fingers are going downwards. So it's really important to get that right. If you wear rings or something, that's also really helpful for figuring out the perspective. You can see the way it's curving. And then here you'll probably only see the top part of your nail, maybe not even. I can see a little bit, so I'm just going to put those in. And then you can put in the crease marks of the hand just to give it a bit of realism. Also, usually fingers are redder at the top. I don't know if you can see in my fingers. We have a lot of blood flow in the tips of our fingers. So typically speaking, when I'm rendering a hand or coloring it in, the tips of the fingers are generally warmer. So I'll add a little bit more red to the tips of the fingers. If I'm shading it in, I can make the tips of the fingers a little bit darker. This is pretty close to this pose, so maybe I'll draw something like this. I guess I shouldn't really say toast. I should say a piece of sliced bread because toast isn't flexible and bread is, right? You can curve a piece of bread because it's nice and soft, whereas you can't really do that with toast. So I'll start saying bread from now on, sliced bread. Think about the grouping of the fingers too. In this case, 3 of my fingers are grouped and then the other 2 are in a separate group. You could also add shading if you think that that would make your hand look a little bit better. I made my hand look super chubby in this drawing. Super chubby. Okay, and then one more pose for a total of 8. I'm going to do a foreshortened one going the opposite way. Sometimes if you can't even see that toast, like in this case, I can't even see it at all. I'm just going to draw in the shapes that I see. Remember that your fingers are slightly bent, like they have a slight curve to them, even when they're straight. So adding in that slight curve is going to make it look a bit more human, which is why I don't like the block method because it makes the hands look very robotic. Whereas hands, in my opinion, are very fluid and very organic.
We love hearing from our community. Is there a video topic you'd like to suggest? Let us know in the comments below. Join a virtual class in seconds and learn live from professional artists. Enjoy weekly assignments, individual guidance, and real-time feedback on your artwork so you can create like a fearless illustrator. If you learned something new, please like and share this with a fellow art nerd. If you love receiving quality and free arts education, subscribe. Here's a couple other videos you can check out next.